they depicted the home world of their gods as a glowing cross. And the term Nibiru actually means planet of the crossing. Another interesting little fact, George, is the Sumerians describe planet X, Nibiru, as having this highly elliptical orbit, and it passes through currently where our asteroid belt is. Now, part of the stories of the Sumerian tales of this planet describe how, let's say around 4.5 billion, 4.7 billion years ago, planet X, one of the moons of planet X, whacked our primitive Earth and caused the asteroid belt, meaning it whacked our primitive Earth in such a way that it strewed out this asteroid belt, leaving our Earth to be let's call it half a planet, and moved it into the orbit it's now in today. And that's another interesting correlation where when we look at, for instance, the idea of Pangea, that Earth at one point was all one connected landmass.
Right, and it cracked or something.
Right, like the skin of an apple, only the skin has come apart, but the actual landmass was just one chunk of land, which supports the idea. I mean, if you siphon off all the water, Pangea, one chunk of mass of land, that it would have been just half a planet. Where's the other half? The Sumerians describe saying that planet X, Nibiru, in this initial collision, or the moons of Nibiru in a collision with Earth, caused the asteroid belt. But here's an interesting little thing that a lot of the ufology people out there will find interesting. So the modern orbit of planet X would take it through Mars and Jupiter. Between Mars and Jupiter is where the asteroid belt is. So we're talking about a 12th planet passing between Mars and Jupiter. We'll look at this. Mars, M, J for Jupiter, MJ, 12th planet, 12th. MJ12. Now, that was just an interesting correlation, I thought. But, again, there is data, which we'll talk about here from the Sumerian epic, that they were aware of 12 members in our solar system. Modern astronomical terms for planet X simply mean X is numeric 10, but also unknown. The planet X of the Sumerians described a solar system, our solar system, with 12 members. They counted the 9 planets we know of, our sun, 10, our moon, 11, and then Nibiru, the 12th planet of the homeworld of the Anunnaki. And that number 12 is very key, and I'm sure Eric, who I'm sure is listening, will have a lot of information to share on this too. But a lot of the things that the Sumerians left us in their lexicon of information, meaning, again, they were the first culture right out of the Stone Age, and we still use a lot of the things that they've left us in the form of math, time, medicine, science. So this idea of a solar system with 12 members, listen to how many references this has filtered down into. Again, these are all Sumerian firsts.
Well, also, there's no doubt that these Sumerians, when they came to our planet, made us in their own form. Don't you think they genetically altered something here to make us look like them?
That's exactly it. If you were to ask a Sumerian man, how do you know all this advanced math and astronomy and courts and systems of laws and judges, school, where did you learn all this? They say all that we know we were taught by the Anunnaki, which simply means those who from heaven come to earth. And they describe a time when they lived amongst their actual living gods. Just like it says in the Bible, there were giants upon the earth. So there's a lot of interesting similarities when we start to look at this information that can cross over again to our modern use of this story. For instance, when we talk about 12 members of the solar system, 12 hours in the day, 12 hours in the night, 12 inches in a foot, 12 in a dozen. Some of the biblical references, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 disciples of Jesus, the 12 Greek Olympians. All of this is a derivative from the original Sumerian information of 12 planets in our solar system, and they were the first ones to divide the heavens into 12 parts.
Is this a code?
It almost sounds like it, like
it does.
Some Da Vinci code or something. But no, this is real, George. This is the real data of, most people would credit math, high math, and science to the Greeks and the Romans. However, they all cite Mesopotamian references, Sumer. So there is just a lot of academic information that can collaborate the legitimacy for what the Sumerians were saying. However, there's that line in the dirt again when the Sumerians start to talk about their interaction with their living gods as real, live, daily events that took place. Our archaeologists and linguists today aren't willing to accept that this was factual data. It's mythology. So we're taking the standpoint to say these are events that have really taken place. An ancient man living in clay huts and using stone tools had no idea to say wow, that's advanced technology. That's a human being coming down in some type of anti-gravitic device, and he's an extraterrestrial. No. They simply said, wow, that must be a god, and he has some conveyance for the power of flight, so we give him wings. But we see even that connection today, George, where even today we're seeing things in our skies, and there are reports of things like alien abductions where we can't put our finger on it. So today we call them aliens, whereas then they called them gods. But maybe these are the same, and there's a crossover here.
Why did they leave this planet?
Well, that's a very esoteric topic, and I think the answer from my own personal view, I can't give you substantial data, would say that they've probably never left. And the reason for that is, the current state of world affairs on Earth right now is that if there is an advanced extraterrestrial race that has an involvement with our past, they're looking at us and seeing us killing ourselves and blowing up the planet and dwindling natural resources. What advantage would we have with the introduction of more advanced technology? So all these stories we hear of classified research or Area 51 or a cover-up, it starts to make sense that if you put into the perspective the inclusion of alien technology, what would that do to the stock market? What would it do if all of a sudden you could buy some little generator the size of a quarter and power your home forever? They're not going to let that type of stuff out. So I can understand some of the real-life applications for if there are aliens and advanced technology, which we hear on the fringes all along for over 50 years, we've been reverse engineering it. It makes sense that this stuff is so amazing and so beneficial that it has to be released in phases, slowly desensitizing the public to the idea that, even for religious purposes, society just isn't quite ready. We're getting there to accept the idea that, we're not the masters of our domain.
How do you think humans during this era, the Sumerians specifically, picked up some of the technology that the Anunnaki, of course, brought to them, but did they train them? Did they leave behind instruments, telescopes? What do you think happened then?
Well, the Sumerians, were very, very interesting in that what they have left us is a daily recorded, recordings of their daily lives and events. So there are thousands of stone tablets with a written language and cylinder seals with basically little pictures. They called them pictograms, and they would roll these seals in wet clay and leave the positive imprint of the image. So they had all these pictures and texts that would describe their daily events, where they very specifically described they lived amongst their living gods. And so, to ask where they went or, what happened to the Sumerians, or will we ever even meet these Anunnaki again, all we have is the recorded data that shows their daily lives included interaction with these beings, the Anunnaki. And the Anunnaki basically would work with very select high priests of the city and scribes, who would work with the priest. A scribe was someone who could read and write Sumerian. The Anunnaki would literally dictate to a high priest and a scribe present information, stories, data. So we have information actually, bequeathed by Anunnaki, for all intents and purposes, an extraterrestrial being, and is telling and, relaying this to Sumerians that have, copied all this information down. And, we have tablets stored in the British Museum where modern archaeologists have translated this information, and it's there as a record for us all to look at. Now, Zacharias Sitchin and a few other linguists have stepped outside the norm of accepted archaeology, instead of saying, what's the meaning of this one phrase or this one word, to say that all the information in a grander context starts to show, what if this information is truth, not just mythology? What if these are events that took place? And the reason why we take that position is all the information they've left us, which we can prove with the scientific advances we have today about astronomy or medicine or astrology, if you want to even include that as science, but the division of the heaven in 12 parts, all these things that we can understand today, we have to start to put into perspective what the Sumerians are saying about the other information we can't understand yet, which is the involvement of extraterrestrials and their very deep involvement with our past and probable future.
This 3,600-year orbit, of course, in terms of speculating if there is a Planet X, where it might be now, and how close will it come and when, Jason?
Well, that's